Kölsch.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I have got one here today from the Fatherland, Cologne to be exact, and it's a bottle of Kölsch. Kölsch, of course, is a beer that is unique to a certain region in Germany, and that region is Cologne. And it rarely makes it outside of Cologne. It's one of them beers that is unique to that region. And what makes it different, I mean, if you looked at Kölsch in a glass, in the correct glass, I'll get onto the glassware in a minute, but if you looked at Kölsch in a glass, to the untrained eye, it would look just like a lager. And to be honest, I would defy anyone to distinguish a Kölsch in a glass from a lager in a glass. They're identical looks-wise, they really are. Taste-wise, very, very similar. However, Kölsch is brewed with top fermenting yeast. Now there's a reason it's brewed with top fermenting yeast, and that goes back to history, certainly the history of Cologne, because in the early, I think it was the 15 or 1600s, the popularity of bottom fermenting lager in Germany. And well, Germany didn't exist then, but the states that made up Germany, everybody was drinking bottom fermented lager. Now, the brewers in Cologne had a very big tradition of using top fermenting yeast in their brews, and the town council, mayor, I don't know what the correct terminology was for it, but they decreed, the lawmakers basically decreed, that you can only use top fermenting yeast and everything must conform to the Reinheitsgebot, because that was law. And that tradition has been carried on ever since. And Kölsch, as I said before, it's pretty unique to that area, you know, the sort of Cologne area and slightly sort of surrounding areas of Cologne. And there's quite a few Kölsches out there, and I do like it. I've tried quite a few of them. I've reviewed some of them on the channel. Now, this brewery, Dom, they've been going since 1894, and they've had quite a checkered history because they started expanding in the early 1900s, buying up other small Cologne brewers, and they were doing quite well until World War II, and the RAF and the Americans came and flattened them in a bombing raid. In fact, the RAF and the American United States Army Air Force, they flattened all but 2 of the breweries in Cologne, and there was 40 of them. So you can imagine that had a devastating effect on beer production in Cologne. It wasn't until 1956 that this lot started getting back up and running again, and the brewery was all fixed up and everything. But that's where it continued, and it was going great guns up until the 70s, and then they started going through a bit of a decline, and then up until I think it was 2006, I think it was, they actually went bust, and I think they've been taken over by the Radeberger Group, and the Radeberger Group are a big concern. They own a lot of breweries in Germany, and they're very like Green King, they're very like Marston's. When they buy up a brewery, they allow the brewery to continue and produce beer under their own label, but it's just under that sort of umbrella company of Radeberger, which is, I think, part of the Dr. Oetker, or Dr. Oetker is part of Radica or something like that. Anyway, Radeberger, Radica, fucking hell, a Radica. Anyway, I've said enough about the beer. Let's get investigated. Right, it's a bottle of Kölsch, and it is 500ml, and it is 4.8%. If you look on the side of the bottle, it has got EU protected status, geographical protected status, and that is because Kölsch should really only come from Cologne. If you're brewing Kölsch outside, in the words of Judas Priest, you're breaking the law. And I do see Kölsch sometimes produced by British craft brewers and some other craft brewers as well. I don't know how they get round that, but certainly I know that in Germany you can't call a beer Kölsch unless it's brewed in Cologne. So there you go. Let's get it open. Before I do, I just want to make you aware of the glassware. I did a video about glassware, and you know, certain styles of beer have distinct glassware, i.e. Weiss beer, Belgian beer, you know, has the chalices and tulip glasses, etc. Kölsch has its own unique style of glassware, and this is it. This is called a Stange, and it's usually, it is, not usually, it is, otherwise it's not a Stange. Stange in German means pole, and the reason it's called a pole is because it's very long, well, relatively long, and it's thin. The glass on this is thin, and there's a reason for this, and the reason is, to really appreciate Kölsch, you need to drink it fresh, and that's the reasoning behind this. You won't see Kölsch in big glasses. It's put in little glasses like this, so you know you can neck it, and once you get down there, it's still cold. It's basically the exact opposite of a stein or a Maß. A Maß, of course, is the glass. What most people call steins. The glass one is actually called a Maß. The stein, an actual stein, as the name would suggest in German, stone, is the actual earthenware jugs that you drink German beer from. You know, the ones with the lids on, etc., etc. So I'll just clear that up anyway. So yeah, let's get it open and let's get it in the glass. Now, as I said, the emphasis on that glassware is for freshness, and the glass and that is very thin. And if you look at that glassware video that I did, it's been actually scientifically proven, there's the cap, it's been scientifically proven that beer stays cooler in thinner glass than it does in thicker glass. Now, that's some claim, but it's actually been proven. So don't argue with me. Well, you can if you want, but I don't care. There it is in the glass. See, and you see what I mean by it looking like a lager? It does. For all intents and purposes, to the untrained eye, that is a lager. What does it smell like? Quite nice. Very grassy and hoppy. A little touch of spice on that, black pepper spice, but it's mainly like grass, hay, that sort of aroma. Herbal, slightly herbal as well. It smells as a Kölsch should. Not much malt in there, in the aroma anyway. But there is malt in it, obviously, but there isn't much on the aroma. Smells quite nice. The water on this comes from their own artesian well. The rumour was that Kölsch was brewed with holy water, or the tears of joy that people cry when they see Cologne Cathedral. Now, I don't know about you, but if you try and make beers out of tears, it's going to taste like shit. But there you go. Let's get it down the hatch. Prost, as they say in Germany. Yeah, it's very nice. For all intents and purposes, it is a lager because it's fermented in the same way that a lager is, i.e. in a cold store. The only difference is they use top fermenting yeast. Now, I don't know how that works with the yeast. They've obviously refined that strain to be efficient at lower temperatures, but it does make for a nice, refreshing beer. And just one thing I will show you, when you've normally in a German bar, this is normally served on draft, so it's going to taste absolutely amazing on draft. I'll get onto the flavours in a minute. I just want to get all this out of the way. But what you'd normally do in a bar on draft, if it was waiter service and you were waiting for a beer, you wouldn't hold your glass up. In Cologne, it's the custom to just put your beer mat on top of the glass, and the waiter comes around, sees you want some, and, you know, takes your glass and fills it up. If you do that in the United Kingdom, that means you've gone for a slash. Don't nick my pint. That's pub etiquette for you in the UK. Anyway, back to the beer. Yeah, it's nice. Grassy, herbal notes. A little touch of sweetness, not much though. And the finish, a little bit spicy, a little bit herbal. And there's some malts in there as well. A little touch of, you know, bready type doughy malt. How I would describe this is it's a cross between a Pilsner and a Helles. Now, if you can imagine that, that sounds very vague, doesn't it? But there is a little touch of the bread, doughy malt, and the yeast combined on that give it a little sweetness. But on top of that, you've got the bitterness of a North German Pilsner. But the two go well together. The one doesn't overpower the other. Initially, it's sweet malt, nice bready sweet malt, and then the finish, you're getting a little bit of bitterness, but there's more herbal notes and hoppy notes, if you know what I mean. And it altogether, it does make a really nice, refreshing beer. Yeah, absolutely no complaints whatsoever with that. That is really nice. Now, I get slated by a mate of mine for drinking Kölsch. He said this is a woman's drink. This is the same bloke that says Berliner Weiss is a woman's drink. So it would appear that I like women's drinks. Oh well, I don't drink wine though. That is a woman's drink. There you go. Anyway, not bad. So what's the verdict on Dom Kölsch? It's very nice indeed. I do like it. It's a typical Kölsch, very, very similar to lager. In a blindfold test, I would be very surprised if somebody could tell the difference. It's just as refreshing, just as tasty, just as flavoursome as a good German lager. As I said, to me, it's a sort of hybrid of the two. That's what it tastes like. Quite a bit of herbal, hoppy type notes that you get on a North German Pilsner, or any German Pilsner for that matter. But then you do get a little bit of sweetness. So, as I say, it's a cross between the Pilsner and the Helles. This is quite a good one. I don't know whether it's the best one though. I think the best one I've taken is I think it's the Fru. I think that was the best one, Fru, for me. I don't think there was many that was better than that. I could be wrong though. But as I say, it's just so similar to lager. It's very difficult to distinguish between the two. Don't get me wrong, if there was nasties in there, you would be the first to know. There's nothing in there that's going to put me off drinking that. So there you go. I'm going to give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. And I'll recommend it. I recommend Kölsch though. I don't think you can go wrong with Kölsch. It's very difficult to fuck that up, in my opinion, if that's what you do. And Kölsch is very much in keeping with lager styles, but you know, it's just brewed with top fermented yeast. And to be honest, it doesn't really make much difference to the flavour. It's just like a good, honest German lager. That's what it tastes like to me anyway. So there you go, that's 8.5 out of 10. That is recommended. And remember, beer is working class champagne.